Hello, everybody. My name is Barbara Gödecke. I'm one of the experts on autonomous language learning at the Language Center of Padova University, and I'm here to welcome you to the December edition of this academic year's 9 Months, 9 Universities, the series of online lectures organized within the framework of Working Group 11 of the ARCUS European University Alliance. The ARCUS Alliance brings together 9 universities who share academic, scientific, and cultural objectives, a common vision of the role of higher education and research, and mutual fields of interest. Together, the partner universities are building an innovative and inclusive approach to education, to research, and to innovation. Working Group 11 is the plurilingual and intercultural hub of the Alliance and aims to promote plurilingualism and to foster intercultural competences amongst the Alliance's universities. The webinars of the series 9 Months, 9 Universities are intended to generate awareness and appreciation for the topic of multilingualism and interculturalism, and an understanding of the many areas of our lives that are related to and influenced by language. The webinars focus on specific topics related to language and culture and target mainly graduate and postgraduate students, as well as early stage researchers and all the staff interested in those topics. Let me now introduce you to today's speaker from the University of Padua, Dario Da Re. Dario has been the director of the Digital Learning and Multimedia Office at the University of Padua since 2017. With a PhD in social research methodology, he coordinates innovative generative artificial intelligence projects for teaching, including Lucrez-IA, the AI assistant of the University of Padua. Dario is an adjunct professor of digital transformations in the sociological sciences degree program, and he's responsible for the main university technological platforms. In 2021, Dario was included in the almanac of the 100 technological innovators of the Italian public administration. Today's webinar, Generative AI and the Role of University from Large Language Models to Multimodal Architectures, analyzes the strategic role of academic institutions in guiding the transformation represented by generative artificial intelligence. In his presentation, Dario will examine the impact of generative AI on 3 fundamental dimensions: teaching, research organization, and disciplinary hybridization. The core of the presentation concerns the pillars of multimodal architectures, scalability, accessibility, security, privacy, and replicability, which are not just technical requirements, but ethical principles that allow universities to adopt AI while maintaining their fundamental values. Particular emphasis will be placed on faculty training and on the importance of a cascade training model in order to multiply the impact on the digital growth of the future generations, and on the role of universities in the guidance in this transformation, training not only aware users, but critical citizens capable of understanding the potential and the limitations and ethical implications of AI. The presentation will conclude with practical examples of multi-model architecture implementation. Just one last thing before handing over the screen. I'd like to ask you to leave your comments and questions in the comment box, and I'll pass them over to the speaker at the end of his talk. So now, well, Dario, grazie di essere qui con noi, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us today. And now the screen is yours.
Thank you, Barbara. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for your invitation. And good morning to everybody. And we can start with the presentation. You can imagine from the words that Barbara used. I strongly believe about the role of our university, above all during this particular time where generative AI seems to change everything. And so now I try to convince you that we have to participate, we have to create and something that is really new for our university, for our countries, and for above all our continent, Europe. And the first slide, please. I can move. Okay. And just to have a look to understand, I'm sorry, because all the characters are not in the perfect ways, but you can understand probably, yes. Okay, just to have a look about the numbers of my university, Padova, is in Italy. We are the third university in Italy for the number of students, 74,000. And we have 12 foreign student, 12,000 foreign student. And another number is important for us, the number of students with special educational needs, 1,400. It's a number that is very important because above all, using generative AI, we think that we can work towards these categories, that it's important for different and very important reasons. And then we have 8,500 people who belong to the categories that are surrounded by a red rectangle. They are professor and technical and administrative staff, 2,800. And then we have 1,200 professors with an external contract, and doctors in training are 1,700. This type of categories can use completely AI, and the project that Barbara mentioned before called Lucrez-IA, and then I would explain later. Then we have PhD student, postgraduate, and so on. On the left side, it's the structure of our university, 32 different scientific departments, libraries, museum, hospital, and so on. Another data that is very important is our community. It's 100,000 people in a city that is more or less double. Padova have 2,900 people residents. And so you can imagine that our university is and the city is just one and the same entity. As a European university, we have to face several different challenges. The first is one of our aim is to fill the gap about digital competence. It's a very important point, and I strongly believe that above all, using this kind of technology, AI and generative AI, we can fill this kind of a gap. And our university are important and are very important drivers also for our state and for Europe as an entity for AI development. And another point important is to give to all the categories, to all the people, to give the access to the technology, and above all, this new technology like generative AI. In our university, we can imagine that there is a very strong, and we have a strong digital divide between students, and we have to try to avoid this kind of divide. And so we can, in the future, but the future must be tomorrow or today, we have to give to all of them the access to generative AI. It's true that this access must be sustainable. I mean, in an economic way, must be sustainable. And if we want to give access to all our students, it's normal that architecture must be scalable. And this is the main important problem. We cannot use just a single model for different ways, but above all, we cannot spend millions of euro to give to all our students the access to one just model. This is why the most important theme of my presentation is architecture versus single model. And we have another point that maybe at the end we can analyze better is quality and reliability, because our university during the last 40 years, inside our university, professors and researchers have published more than 200,000 publications. It's a lot of publication, and most of them are not a part of the training of the model. As I said, my speech is about architecture versus single large language model. The problem are several. If you use architecture, we can be safe. I mean that we are protected from our data cannot train the model. And so the architecture is closed from outside. It's closed, internally closed. If we create an architecture that is in Europe, it's totally GDPR compliance. That is one problem or opportunity, or is a point that in Europe we have to face. We cannot ignore that we have a rule, that we have a law. And this kind of law, GDPR, is to protect the European citizen. Then architecture can guarantee a cost that must be 10 times, not 10% or 20%, 10 times or 20 times lower than a single model. The scalability of an architecture is much more important than a single LLM. And also, if we can use an architecture, we can change the model. We cannot just invest in one single model, because invest in one single thing, technologically speaking, probably we can go towards what we call lock-in. And as above all university, that we have one important goal, that is research and development, we have to avoid every kind of lock-in. And so we have to invest in different many models. As you know, we have thousands of models. We have not just one ChatGPT. It's important to understand. We have thousands of different models. And if we can organize an architecture, also we can customize, and we can use what we is called RAG, retrieval augmented generation. Also, using an architecture, we can also customize the access. In our case, in our university, we use all, not only in Arcus, but in all the world, we use the same authentication system. A single sign-on is something that is not just an authentication system. It's something that in all the university, all the world, you can go there and you can use directly the network. It's not something that is simple, but it's important. And also using architecture, we can integrate it in the best way beyond API, the single chatbot inside our services, I mean our web or application. Usually, when we use a normal chatbot like ChatGPT, but every kind of AI, generative AI, we can understand that there are 4 different phases. The first 2 we cannot control. We cannot, it are not controlled by a single user like us. And the first is training, and the second is fine tuning. Just to understand what is the training, is the training of the model. But the fine tuning is something that in the future will be quite always very spread. Every single model in the future will be specialized, for example, in a specific subject. One of the most important problem related to the single subject is, for example, is about law. In all the world, we have several different law, and more or less 200 different law in different countries. And probably in the future, every single generalistic model, there will be a fine tuning specific for each countries. But if we cannot control the first 2 phases because belong to the main companies, we can customize, and we can use the second as a sort of a second level. We can customize our chatbot, create some instruction, and to give some specific parameters. And it's important because, as you can see later, when I present a specific bot created for the Arcus community, I can give it to a specific bot some instruction and to change the parameters. And above all, I can integrate a single model with another different or private or very, very specific kind of information, I mean files. In this kind of Arcus chatbot, I download several PDF coming from the website, and I created the chatbot integrated with this kind of document. Another point that is very important about the role of our university. As you know, when on November 22, OpenAI decided to open to all the world generative AI. It was something that it was shocked. Now, at the moment, 3 years after, the majority of analysts believe that the curve of the change is decreasing slowly. But I believe that above all, as university, and we have a very important duty that we have to invest on research and development, we are on the other side of the curve. It's the point for us to decide. And this is, I strongly believe that after my presentation, all of you that are participating to this meeting believe that it's time to get this kind of decision. Lucrez-IA is a project that we launched 1 year ago on September 24. Lucrez-IA is the name of the first woman that have a degree in the world. It was in Padova in 1678, a lot of time ago. And we decided to dedicate to Lucrez-IA, Cornaro Piscopia, the entire project. The entire project is to give to all our community generative AI, integrated for the teaching part with Moodle. Moodle is our most important platform, LMS. Probably I know that several of Arcus University have the same infrastructure model. And so we decided to invest in a lot of different chatbots and integrating Lucrez-IA directly in Moodle. And the number of potential users, remember the red rectangle, are 8,500. Only 700 and 7,200 decided to use just one time. But the most important number is the people of our community that use every day. 5,000. This is a very important number. And during the last 15 months, we realized using Lucrez-IA 4.5 million of conversation. You know, every single conversation is like ChatGPT. A conversation can composed by only a few words, but a conversation in our case is maybe last several weeks. For example, for coding, you can use the same conversation for more than 1 month, writing row and row of coding. And another point important is the number of token. As you know, token is the unit of generative AI. In the future, probably token, it will be like kilos, kilometers, or kilobyte, megabyte, gigabyte. And every day in our university, our community, use 32 million tokens in input. And the answer from the project from Lucrez-IA, I mean, in a single conversation, is 1,000,009 token in output. The equivalent in input is 75 books, and the output is 5 books. Here, there is a use that is completely different from all the statistics that I found somewhere. For example, using ChatGPT, they said that for every token in input, we have 2 or 3 tokens in output. Here, you can say that is the opposite. We have for 12 tokens in input, we have 1 token in output. This means that our use in our university is completely different from the majority of the users of ChatGPT, because our use is analyzing documents. The principal use in our architecture is analyze report, analyze publication, analyze database. And so the number of token in input is heavy. The number of tokens is greater than the output. Another point important is the number of the courses and the professor that decided to integrated Lucrez-IA in Moodle in their courses. On the second semester of last year, we found that 70% of professors decide to open to all their students Lucrez-IA integrated in Moodle. So coming from this number, you can understand that we have an architecture that is ready to be open to all our students, 74,000. Now have a look at the operational model of Lucrez-IA. It's based principle in the Amazon Web Services architecture. And the yellow rectangle show that there is a sort of perimeters. It's a safe perimeters. Our architecture is in Frankfurt, in Paris, in Dublin, in Madrid, and in a small part also in Milan. All the architecture is in Europe, is totally GDPR compliant. And usually when you use ChatGPT or another model that can be Claude or another model, the path that you go is from number 1, number 4, number 5. You ask something to a model, directly to a model, and you receive an input, and you receive an answer, a sort of output. Remember that if you want to use any kind of model at the moment, you are not respecting GDPR, because only during the last few months, OpenAI decided to invest in European data center. But the majority of the use of every kind of model, not only OpenAI, ChatGPT, if you go to 1, 4, 5, you go to US. And so you are not, and you, as a private citizen, you can do everything you want, obviously. But if I'm working as an institution, like a university, like a private company, we cannot avoid GDPR. We have to respect it. And so the only way to respect is to use an European architecture, or an European, or a model that physically is resident in Europe. At the moment, there is not a completely resident in Europe. Also, Claude, I decided to invest in Claude because I believe that is the best model for our needs. There is no one best model for all the needs. As I told you before, we can change the model, and we have thousands of different models. In our testing platform, we have Mistral, we have DeepSeek, we have different Llama, the open source models, and so we can change. But I found that for our needs, I mean for our university needs, Claude is the best, above all for ethical reasons. And another point important, I use the AWS architecture, and above all, I decided to invest in a service called Amazon Bedrock. Bedrock is a sort of marketplace where you can go there, and as you normally, when you use Amazon Marketplace, you can buy everything from the marketplace online. In the same way, you can go there, Amazon Bedrock, and you can pick up the best model you prefer. Another point important and explain: if you use an architecture, you can customize RAG. And so you can add for every single chatbot, you can add all the documents you want. I mean, you can, one of the problems that we have with all the large language models is the problem with the hallucinations. And if you want to reduce the number of the hallucination, you can create a very strong RAG. You can, adding different and many documents, you can customize your answer, because the model will answer using that kind of information coming from the RAG. This is another point that's important. In this kind of architecture, you can use as a RAG also private documents that cannot be public, and also for the future cannot be public, because must be close to an institution and a company and so on. And now I will show you how Lucrez-IA works. And please, Jose, can you switch? Okay. This is a chatbot, and this is an interface. And on the right, on the left, you can find a lot of different chatbots that some of them are used. All of them are from for our university. Some of them are public. Some of them are for testing. As you can see, there is one that is Arcus AI, and I prepared this kind of chatbot because just for this presentation. Take a look that we have, for example, we have a different chatbot. This one, and translator, coder, or regolamenti or digital learning, they are different because they are public, and they are based on the same, exactly the same model, Claude, but I change, for example, some parameters. Coder is for coding. We change, for example, the temperature. That is one important parameter. Changing these kind of parameters, I can change the answer of a model. And the same, it's a translator is specific for translating. I mean, from, as you know, using Claude, for example, I can change, I can translate for every kind of languages, also from dialect, for language that are not so important. If we have a time, maybe we can use also language like dialect, for example. And here there is another Regolamenti UniPD. It's important because here we have all the rules or our internal laws from our university. You can imagine that our rules are quite a lot because we have more than 140 different rules for research, for teaching, for ethical purposes, and so on, 140. And here you can ask directly about everything. For example, I can ask, how can I do to go to Narcos University, and they show how I can organize all my documents to go to this place. And here the chatbot. Here there is another one that is a chatbot that is PED AI. PED AI is a project specific for the School of Pediatric, and and so I can, every kind of project in the future, every kind of subject, every department, every office, every person, every member of the staff in the future probably can have this very specific chatbot. I'm working because I believe that in the future also, when a student decided to enroll to our university, in the same time that it received the number of the enrollment, they will receive also a chatbot. And this chatbot will follow the student for all the path of the 3-5 years. This is the future, is tomorrow. It's not in 10 or 20 years. And I will show you Arcus. As you know, if you using a normal AI tools like ChatGPT, you have to explain who you are. Here, this chatbot knows perfectly who he is, because I already decided that it's a chatbot specific for the community. translate the translation of the language is perfect because in this case I use Claude, and Claude is one of the best model for linguistic purposes. If I made some mistake, it's not a problem. I created this chatbot. If you write in a language, the answer will be in the same language. And so here are some information about Minus. Tell me the vision of Arcus. The vision of Arcus is not something probably, yes, you can find also using ChatGPT this kind of answer, but here are exactly the same because I created this chatbot, then I show you, using all the information coming a specific PDF from the website. If you look at the vision, you can understand that it's exactly the same. Now we will show you how it works, how I can create this chatbot. Here the side name was this one, description of the chatbot. Here the first instruction, you are Arcus AI, and your task is to respond to all project and so on, information about the alliance. And then here you can find that I created the RAG. Here there are only 4 different documents, but the RAG must be much more higher, with hundreds, thousands of different documents. And here what are the universities involved? Arcus AI knows perfectly that the university involved is related to the project, is not in general in the world. To understand, and here, as all the chatbot, I could upload a document. I can analyze a document. As I said before, one of the most important use in our university, probably in all the universities that are using architecture and chatbot in this way, I can upload a single file and I can ask an analysis or a translation or a report about maybe an Excel file. In this case, I can show you how this chatbot, could you explain me, tell me. something about. Here, some information coming from the RAG, from a document that I already upload, and some are coming directly from the main training of Claude. Could you write an Irish poem? Is something that is not included in the RAG. But as I said, the model can answer not just based on the RAG, the knowledge base, but they can use the previous, the most important training. And so this is one of, I use Minus like an example, bridge of the Minus. Look at there are some words that are in Gaelic, in Celtic, and I don't know if there is a translation from Celtic to English. And here, as you know, Irish Celtic is not one of the most important language. Most important language are all the languages spoken by more than 10 million people, but the translation is quite good. So you can imagine that this chatbot could be integrated directly in the Arcus website. And so a normal user, a person that is curious about Arcus, can find directly information from the chatbot and not from the website. One of the, probably in the future, probably the website will be different as we imagine now. Okay, we can switch back to my presentation. And here is 1 year ago, during the last Christmas period, I decided to create, to publish a book created completed with Lucrezia. And in one afternoon, we Lucrezia produced a book about herself. It's a reflection on generative AI, and I created the version in Italian, in English, and in Veneto language. It's a dialect spoken only in our region where there is Venice, for just to be clear. And if you want, you can download directly the English version, and you can understand in this. It's a book. It's a real book. And how can I create this book? Because I decided I create a chatbot and without any limits, and the number of tokens was unlimited. And so I can create just in one afternoon, 3 hours, more than 500,000 characters. The cost, I mean, the technological cost of the platform and the model for creating this book, it was a little bit more than €1, €1.30. And it's almost nothing, but it's important, because if every day all my users can spend the same amount, the cost will be increased too much. And so every single chatbot must be created based on the needs of the user. In this case, the number of tokens was unlimited, but all the other chatbot, they have a limit for different reasons. Okay, so now I can I finish my presentation, and if you have any question, I will be very pleased to answer.
Grazie, Dario. Thank you so much. We'll just see if there are upcoming questions, but in the meanwhile, I will, how to say, I will just use the time to ask the questions I always had, or always, I found always difficult to answer for myself also. And I was very impressed because at the very beginning of the presentation, you were talking about the possibility of how AI can support students with special educational needs. I can definitely believe it, but can you give me an example of how artificial intelligence can be useful for somebody who learns in a different way from the normal path?
Yes, and I can use the example specifically in Moodle. When a professor decide to introduce Lucrez-IA inside their specific courses, they can decide to open to all the participants to the course, but also they can select just one student.
Mm-hmm.
And in several professors decided to open the potential of AI just for the student that they have a certificate of specific needs. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can use in a different way, they can receive help, a support, a specific support when they want, 24 hours a day, like it was the professor.
Yeah, true. Didn't think of
Here. I don't mean that there is the AI can replace the professor. But an AI can be a very important assistant for a professor to help the student
to support students.
Yes, this everywhere. One when at the moment Lucrez-IA can be used only in written ways, but we are working also for voice, because it's another important integration. As you can imagine, integrated voice in architecture, it's a little bit more expensive. But it's something that will be very useful for students with special needs, but also for us. So in the future, probably we can speak with a generative AI during our where we can travel in a place from another place, and the only way is to give to Lucrez-IA or AI the voice that it's important.
Yeah. And as I guess in more than one or two of the conversations which were on the list of when there was the slide where you showed the number of conversations Lucrez-IA is in. I'm using Lucrez-IA on a daily basis without having ever thought and reflected on how does it work, where does she get this information. Yeah, sorry for I was wondering how, like, how are the public chatbots feeded, like updated with things? Is it a very expensive, like energy this expensive, you need somebody to update things? I know that sounds like a very stupid question, but it's my first time speaking to an expert on.
No, sustainability is one of the main point for technology generally, but above all for AI and generative AI. And this is why we have a very strong difference from Europe to US.
Mm-hmm.
And we have not the same architecture. We have not the same data center. Because we before devastating a forest in Europe, I mean, we can debate, we can discuss a lot before doing this, and probably this kind of accuracy or ethical question they don't belong to our to other countries,
Mm-hmm.
and so we cannot. Look at our law GDPR or AI European Act like something that is wants to reduce the AI impact or the technology. But it's important to understand that the GDPR or AI European Act are laws that try to protect European citizens. And yes, it's true that our technology are not so powerful like US or China, but we have to balance. We have to understand, we have to analyze if we are using a technology that is for our growth. I mean, our ethical, our growth like humans, like for the humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And not just for the interest of a specific company or a country.
Yeah, so the closure of the architecture is basically also one of the guarantees.
Yes, another point important is the architecture is closed.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the problems that we faced during the first months, years of ChatGPT is that all documents uploaded became a part of the training. And thousands, millions of clinical report during that period has been uploaded by doctors who ignore completely what was the problem. And so the training now is composed by name and disease of a lot of people in all the world. If you have a technology, a closed technology like ours, but I strongly believe that every university, every region, every countries must create this kind of technology, because a technology can respect values, ethical values, culture, linguistic difference, and so every place must be a specific architecture, and this kind of architecture is closed. And so if you decide to upload a documents, this document is physically closed inside your architecture. And this is very important because as I showed during my presentation, one of the chatbot was for pediatric use. As you know, pediatric use is one of the most delicate contest for working with generative AI. And so we have to give all the guarantee to our doctors that all the data belongs to themselves.
Yeah.
It's important point.
And the same is, even if it's not that delicate a scenario, I guess, but the same will happen because you were talking about the like the chatbot for each student. That is something which is going to happen not in a very far away future, but maybe very soon. So if a student has their own chatbot, they can definitely be sure in a closed environment that it's safe also, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, absolutely safe because the data belongs to every single user,
Mm-hmm.
and it's important. And but speaking about student, it's important believe that, for example, now we have a different kind of ChatGPT. There is
Mm-hmm.
one free ChatGPT that obviously is not free because it works with our data. And
Mm-hmm.
we have a ChatGPT with $20 per month. We have a ChatGPT with $200 per month.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that there is a different, and we have to avoid this kind of different because we have the duty to give to our student a complete service that must be the same for all our
Everybody.
students.
Yeah. Agreed.
Generative AI must be democratic.
Mm-hmm.
This is very important.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot repeat the mistake of the past. For example, in the past, at the beginning of during the first years of the 80s, there was a lot of companies producing a PC. I mean, a physical PC, and then a lot of companies produces different softwares. And now commercially we have just one or only few companies. One is Microsoft, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And we cannot, as a university above all, we cannot give the possibility to one single company to become the Microsoft of the future.
Mm-hmm. Totally agreed.
Yeah.
Absolutely agreed. Okay. I don't see upcoming question, and I think we can I can once more thank you for your presentation, which was really great and made me a bit realize how many things I didn't take into consideration in all my chats with Lucrezia right now. I will think about it in the next conversations for sure, because it's really intriguing. And yeah, thank you so much for having been here with us, and see you around.
See you
Bye.
soon.
Yeah.
And if you want, you can write me.
Okay, great. All the questions, yeah, if there are upcoming questions after the talk, I will send them to you. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks, Joel.
Thank you.